Hello, this is Drangeid, and I am going to talk very briefly about Jensen's brain-based theory of cognitive development. So, who was Eric Jensen? Well, rather, who is Eric Jensen? There he is right there. We can see he grew up in California, authored a whole bunch of books, three of them bestsellers, better than most of us ever do. So, looking at his educational background, he was a teacher for a number of years before he went back to get his master's and subsequently his PhD in human development. A little bit of detail on his professional history. So, teaching study skills, and then transitioned to um, more of a directorial and organizational role. He currently is someone who is going around and helping schools with approaching behavioral issues with their students appropriately. He he is a well honored and well respected member of several different societies. Okay, so with Jensen's theory, in looking around, it's not stated quite as clearly as you might find some of the traditional cognitive development theories, but there are aspects of it, characteristics. So it is based off the idea that the brain, so this is all about brain-based research, that the brain is adaptive, and that is something that is pretty well documented and undisputed, and that the brain is always capable of change with appropriate training. The research has also indicated that working memory, what you can retain in the short term and recall, is the greatest predictor of how people in general, but kids specifically, are going to succeed a little later in life. Combined with that, chronic stress, what Jensen refers to as allostatic load, is something that decreases this working memory. He has done a fair amount of research into the stresses of poverty, but that isn't the only area where he's looked at sources of stress. But with this prolonged stress, this allostatic load, this is been shown to be a primary source of absences. Uh, it really does a number on attention and concentration, thinking. Kids, people in general, are less creative, don't remember things as well. They don't get along in society as well. They don't have as much motivation. They give up easier. They don't want to try very hard. Um, Not surprisingly, uh, along with this, there is increased incidence of depression. And going back to the brain-based theory is that it has been shown that new brain cell growth is diminished when a person is under this continuous stress. Another characteristic of his theory is that so much of what we see as problematic behavior um, has is rooted in things that we don't know about. And it gets easy to just think, kid's acting like a unpleasant person. but there's really something behind it all. He also believes that correct emotional responses, correct behavior, is something that can be trained, that can be taught. So, how are they taught? He is a proponent of the idea that is based in, sorry, stumbling over my words, um, that has been shown with brain research that relationships play a really critical role in the development of a child, both in emotional and academic settings. He stresses the need for a teacher to get to know their students individually, and that is tricky. We're always finding we're running out of time. But the research has indicated that relationships, socialization, these are things that really drive school behaviors. Once again, I apologize for stumbling over my words here. So, what is the upshot of his ideas that are based on brain research? So, going back to this need for teachers to get to know students individually, um, that means that you're not just assuming the source of incorrect behavior. You're actually going to talk to the kid, you're going to find out what's really going on, and you're trying to understand them and correct them without it being personal attacks. Once again, he thinks that all of this stuff is teachable, and the research indicates that this is true. It is an easy shortcut. We get tired, we get frustrated, we run out of time to just think that some kids are just lazy. They're just bad kids. They just aren't smart. And having these labels is really detrimental, both for the student directly, but also for the instructor. You start to get into a habit of thinking this way. Um, and we want, an initial reaction can be that you just want to criticize rather than help them get past these behaviors. And the criticism needs to be really what is thought of as discipline. Discipline is sometimes misunderstood as punishment. I recall seeing an interview with Fred Rogers about the distinction between discipline and punishment, and he called discipline an act of care, an act of love, and that you are trying to help a child get along better in the world. So I think about that sometimes. So when it comes to this idea that we are constantly running out of time as teachers, we all know that. I think that's widely recognized. And so you think, how am I going to get to know all these kids individually? And in his research, Jensen has seen that teachers who do very well take the first couple of weeks, and a big focus of what they do isn't so much on content, but it is on building relationships. And I think about all the different ways that this can be done. It's not like we're just going to sit down and say, tell me about yourself, because most kids are going to be, especially a high school kid like I teach, they're going to be put off by that. But you get to know them in other sorts of ways. And it got me really thinking about what I can do even more than what I normally do the first week or so. And this is not groundbreaking, the idea that we need to provide an equitable environment for our students. Those who need help, they get the help so that they're not allowed to fail. Now, that's just not a matter of saying you need to do more work. It's a matter of investing. So there needs to be this genuine intention that is backed with action and a plan to not let this kid fail. We're persistently after them as an act of care. Uh, he also definitely notes that teachers are not alone in the effort, that parents play a critical role, not just as somebody who hovers around, but that they are actually there to help train their children, and that you need to have good leadership and a clear understanding of why a school is focusing on these sorts of behavioral corrections, how to do it, and to actually provide support for teachers. Thank you for your time, and once again, I apologize for stumbling over my words.